Long before the rise of modern nations, before the great empires of Europe and long before history was recorded in the form we know today, an extraordinary civilization flourished upon the Indian subcontinent. Across vast rivers, fertile plains, dense forests and coastal kingdoms, ancient people built magnificent cities, mastered engineering, explored astronomy, and created systems of knowledge that would influence humanity for thousands of years. Yet much of their story vanished. Their cities were swallowed by deserts. Their temples faded into jungles. Their libraries burned. Their rivers disappeared. And beneath layers of earth and time, the memory of entire civilizations slowly faded into legend. Today, archaeologists continue to uncover fragments of this forgotten world. Beneath the sands of Pakistan and India lie the ruins of cities older than many ancient kingdoms once believed to be the cradle of civilization. Deep beneath the ocean near the coast of Gujarat, mysterious stone structures raise questions about lost cities described in ancient epics. Across India stand temples carved from mountains so precisely that even modern engineers struggle to explain how they were built. What kind of civilization created these wonders? Who were these people? And why did their worlds disappear? This is not merely the story of ancient ruins. It is the story of human ambition, brilliance, spirituality, survival, and collapse. It is a journey through forgotten kingdoms, submerged cities, sacred knowledge, and mysteries that continue to challenge modern understanding. Some believe mythology hides fragments of historical truth. Others believe ancient India possessed knowledge far beyond what history credits it with. Between science, legend, archaeology, and memory lies a hidden past still waiting to be uncovered. Tonight, we travel back into the lost world of ancient India. A world of hidden history. A world buried beneath time itself. In the early 20th century, archaeologists working beneath the dry plains of the Indian subcontinent uncovered something extraordinary. Buried beneath layers of dust and forgotten time were the remains of a civilization unlike anything previously imagined. The cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro revealed a world far older and more advanced than historians expected. Dating back more than 4,000 years, the Indus Valley Civilization emerged as one of humanity's earliest great urban societies, standing beside ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia as one of the cradles of civilization. But what stunned researchers most was not merely the age of these cities. It was their sophistication. Wide streets stretched across carefully planned grids. Houses were built with standardized baked bricks. Sophisticated drainage systems carried wastewater beneath the streets. Wells provided clean water to residents. Public baths suggested complex social and spiritual practices. This was not a primitive settlement. This was organized civilization. Mohenjo-daro, whose name means Mound of the Dead, once stood as a thriving urban center filled with merchants, artisans, farmers, and traders. Markets bustled with activity. Potters shaped delicate ceramics. Craftsmen created jewelry from gold, copper, and precious stones. Boats carried goods along river systems connecting distant lands. Trade routes linked the Indus Valley with Mesopotamia and Persia. Ancient seals discovered in distant regions suggest that merchants from the Indus Valley traveled widely across the ancient world. And yet, despite their achievements, these people left behind very little about themselves. No grand statues of kings dominate the ruins. No giant royal tombs proclaim the glory of rulers. Even their writing system remains undeciphered. Thousands of carved symbols have been discovered on seals and artifacts, but no one has fully unlocked their meaning. Who governed these cities? What language did they speak? What beliefs guided their civilization? The answers remain hidden. Still, clues survive within the ruins themselves. The Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro suggests rituals connected to water purification and spirituality. Carefully measured weights indicate advanced mathematics and trade systems. Uniform city planning implies centralized organization and astonishing engineering skill. For centuries, these cities flourished beside the mighty rivers of the Indus region. But their greatness would not last forever. Somewhere in the shadows of history, disaster approached. And one of the world's greatest civilizations began moving toward collapse. The more researchers studied the Indus Valley Civilization, the more astonishing it became. Thousands of years ago, while much of the ancient world still struggled with basic urban organization, the cities of the Indus Valley displayed planning and engineering that rivaled many later civilizations. Their streets followed carefully designed grids. Homes were connected to advanced drainage systems. Water management was remarkably sophisticated. Some houses even contained private bathing areas connected to underground sewage channels. It was a level of urban sanitation rare for the ancient world. The people of the Indus Valley clearly understood architecture, mathematics, and engineering with extraordinary precision. Standardized bricks were used across enormous distances, suggesting strong systems of organization and communication. Massive granaries stored food supplies. Workshops produced tools, beads, and metal objects of exceptional craftsmanship. And yet, despite this complexity, there is surprisingly little evidence of extreme social hierarchy. Unlike Egypt, no gigantic pyramids dominate the skyline. Unlike Mesopotamia, no massive royal palaces proclaim the authority of kings. This has led some historians to wonder whether the civilization may have functioned through a more cooperative social structure. But perhaps the greatest mystery remains their script. Tiny inscriptions appear on seals, pottery, and artifacts discovered across the civilization. Thousands of symbols survive. Yet even today no one has definitively translated them. Without understanding their writing, much of their world remains silent. We do not know their myths. We do not know their rulers. We do not know how they viewed themselves. Still, evidence suggests a civilization deeply connected to spirituality and nature. Animal imagery appears frequently within their art. Sacred symbols hint at religious traditions that may later influence Indian civilization for thousands of years. Some scholars believe elements of later Hindu traditions may trace distant roots back to this forgotten world. As the cities expanded, trade flourished and prosperity grew. But beneath the surface, forces beyond human control were beginning to change the land itself. The rivers that gave life to the civilization would soon become part of its destruction. For centuries, the cities of the Indus Valley Civilization thrived across the fertile plains of ancient northwestern India and present-day Pakistan. Their streets remained alive with merchants and craftsmen. Their granaries overflowed with grain. Their rivers carried trade and prosperity across vast distances. Then, almost mysteriously, the civilization began to disappear. One by one, the great cities were abandoned. The bustling streets of Mohenjo-daro fell silent. Homes were left empty. Workshops ceased production. Trade networks collapsed. And one of the greatest civilizations of the ancient world slowly faded into ruin. What caused such a dramatic collapse remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Unlike civilizations destroyed by a single catastrophic war, the decline of the Indus Valley appears gradual yet devastating. Archaeologists discovered evidence suggesting that environmental change may have played a major role. For thousands of years, mighty rivers nourished the civilization. But nature itself was beginning to shift. Climate patterns changed across the region. Monsoons weakened. Rivers that once carried enormous volumes of water slowly began drying up. Fertile lands transformed into arid plains. Agriculture became increasingly difficult. Among these lost waterways, none is more mysterious than the Saraswati River. Ancient Vedic texts describe the Saraswati as a mighty sacred river flowing across northern India. In the Rig Veda, it is praised as one of the greatest rivers of the ancient world. Yet today no massive river matching those descriptions exists. Some researchers believe the Saraswati once flowed powerfully through regions connected to the Indus Valley Civilization before eventually drying up due to tectonic changes and climate shifts. Satellite imagery has revealed traces of ancient river channels buried beneath deserts, adding new intrigue to the mystery. Could the disappearance of the Saraswati have triggered the collapse of entire cities? If the river systems failed, millions would have faced famine, migration, and economic disaster. But environmental collapse is only one theory. For many years, historians proposed another explanation: invasion. Early scholars believed waves of Indo-Aryan migrants entered the Indian subcontinent and violently destroyed the Indus Valley Civilization. This became known as the Aryan invasion theory. According to this idea, invading groups overwhelmed the cities, causing the civilization's collapse. However, modern archaeology has complicated this theory. Evidence of large-scale warfare and destruction remains limited. Many researchers now argue that the collapse was likely far more gradual and connected to climate change, migration, and economic decline rather than sudden conquest. The debate continues even today. Some scholars support migration theories. Others reject invasion entirely. The truth may involve multiple factors unfolding over centuries. As rivers weakened and trade systems collapsed, disease may also have spread through vulnerable populations. Crowded urban centers often become breeding grounds for epidemics during periods of environmental stress. Famine, malnutrition, and economic instability could have accelerated the collapse further. Archaeological discoveries hint at a civilization struggling against growing uncertainty. In some cities, unfinished buildings suggest sudden abandonment. Tools and belongings were left behind. Skeletons discovered in streets once led to dramatic theories of massacres and catastrophe. Though many early interpretations remain disputed, the haunting image of abandoned cities continues to fuel the mystery. What happened to the people themselves? They did not simply vanish. Evidence suggests large populations gradually migrated eastward toward regions nourished by the Ganges River system. Over generations, these migrating communities likely merged with evolving cultures across the Indian subcontinent. Elements of language, spirituality, farming traditions, craftsmanship, and social organization may have survived within later Indian civilization. In this way, the Indus Valley Civilization may never have truly disappeared. Instead, it transformed. Its cities fell. Its rivers vanished. Its script was forgotten. But fragments of its legacy continued flowing silently through history. And yet, thousands of years later, the ruins still whisper unanswered questions. Why did such an advanced civilization collapse? What secrets remain buried beneath the deserts? And how much of ancient India's hidden history has been lost forever beneath time itself? The fall of the Indus Valley Civilization reminds humanity of a timeless truth. No empire, no matter how advanced, is eternal. Nature changes. Rivers disappear. Civilizations rise. Civilizations fall. And eventually, even the greatest cities become dust beneath the feet of future generations. Among all the lost cities connected to ancient India, none captures the imagination more powerfully than Dwaraka, the legendary kingdom associated with Lord Krishna. For thousands of years, its story survived through sacred texts, oral traditions, and epic poetry. According to ancient Hindu scriptures, Dwaraka was not merely a city. It was a magnificent golden kingdom built beside the sea. A city of wealth, beauty, power, and divine presence. The Mahabharata describes Dwaraka as an extraordinary fortress city filled with grand palaces, shining walls, enormous gateways, and bustling ports connected to distant lands through maritime trade. It was said to have been built by divine architects themselves. Within its royal halls lived Krishna, one of the most revered figures in Indian spirituality and mythology. After leaving Mathura, Krishna is believed to have established Dwaraka along the western coast of India, transforming it into a prosperous and powerful kingdom protected by the sea. Ancient descriptions portray the city as dazzling beyond imagination. Golden towers reflected sunlight across the ocean. Harbors overflowed with ships. Warriors guarded enormous gates. Music echoed through magnificent streets. And yet, according to legend, the city would not survive forever. The Mahabharata tells of a catastrophic event following Krishna's departure from the earthly world. The sea itself rose and swallowed Dwaraka. Its palaces vanished beneath the waves. Its people disappeared. And the once glorious kingdom was lost beneath the ocean. For centuries, many considered the story symbolic mythology rather than historical memory. But in modern times, discoveries beneath the waters near the coast of Gujarat reignited the mystery. Marine archaeologists exploring underwater regions near present-day Dwaraka uncovered stone structures, walls, anchors, and submerged formations that appeared ancient in origin. Some researchers suggested these findings may indicate the remains of an old port city. Others urged caution, warning that natural formations and later historical settlements could explain many discoveries. The debate quickly intensified. Could these underwater ruins truly be connected to the legendary city described in ancient texts? Or were people seeing mythology within ordinary archaeological remains? The question remains deeply controversial. Supporters argue that the discoveries align remarkably with ancient descriptions of a coastal city submerged by rising seas. Skeptics counter that definitive evidence linking the ruins to Krishna's Dwaraka has not yet been established. Still, the mystery continues to fascinate millions. Part of Dwaraka's enduring power comes from its position between myth and history. Unlike ordinary ancient cities, Dwaraka exists simultaneously as a sacred spiritual symbol and an archaeological puzzle. For believers, it represents a real kingdom connected to divine history. For historians, it raises profound questions about how mythology may preserve fragments of forgotten events. Could ancient flood legends contain memories of real environmental disasters? Thousands of years ago, coastlines across the world changed dramatically as sea levels rose following the end of the Ice Age. Entire settlements may have disappeared beneath the oceans. Some researchers speculate that catastrophic flooding or tsunami-like events could have destroyed ancient coastal communities in western India. If such disasters occurred, stories passed down through generations might eventually transform into epic legend. This possibility gives Dwaraka extraordinary emotional power. It becomes more than mythology. It becomes humanity's memory of loss. Even today, pilgrims travel to Dwaraka believing it remains one of Hinduism's most sacred places. Temples stand near the sea where many believe Krishna's ancient kingdom once flourished. Beneath the waters beyond the coastline, divers continue searching for clues. Stone blocks rest silently beneath shifting currents. Fragments of walls emerge from the darkness. Ancient anchors hint at maritime activity long ago. Yet the ocean guards its secrets carefully. Perhaps that is why Dwaraka continues to captivate the modern world. It exists at the edge of certainty. Part archaeology, part mythology, part spiritual memory. It reminds humanity that history is not always fully preserved in written records. Sometimes it survives through stories, through sacred songs, through legends passed from one generation to another. And sometimes, beneath the waves of forgotten seas, traces of those stories may still remain waiting to be discovered. Whether Dwaraka was exactly as the epics describe may never be fully proven. But the mystery itself has become immortal. A sunken city, a lost kingdom, a forgotten world resting beneath the ocean floor. And perhaps somewhere within those silent underwater ruins lies a hidden connection between mythology and the ancient past. In the rugged landscapes of ancient India, where mountains rose like stone guardians above forests and rivers, human hands achieved something so extraordinary that even today it challenges modern understanding. Across cliffs, hillsides, and solid rock faces, ancient builders carved entire temples directly into mountains, not by assembling stones piece by piece, but by removing millions of tons of rock with astonishing precision. These monuments were not merely places of worship. They were declarations of devotion, engineering mastery, artistic brilliance, and spiritual vision carved permanently into the earth itself. Among all these wonders, none inspires greater awe than the Kailasa Temple at Ellora. Hidden within the rocky hills of Maharashtra, the temple appears almost impossible at first sight. Unlike traditional buildings constructed upward from foundations, Kailasa was carved downward from a single massive rock. Ancient artisans removed enormous quantities of stone from the mountain to reveal an entire freestanding temple complex complete with pillars, halls, stairways, sculptures, shrines, and towering gateways. What makes this achievement even more astonishing is the precision involved. Builders could not afford mistakes. One wrong cut into the rock could ruin the entire structure forever. Yet every corridor, every carving, and every column displays remarkable symmetry and detail. Even with modern machinery, recreating such a monument would require immense planning and engineering. Historians estimate that hundreds of thousands of tons of rock were removed during construction. How ancient builders achieved this using relatively simple tools remains one of the greatest mysteries of Indian architecture. The Kailasa Temple was dedicated to Lord Shiva and designed to represent Mount Kailash, the mythical cosmic home of Shiva in Hindu belief. Every wall carries intricate carvings depicting scenes from the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and sacred mythology. Massive stone elephants appear to support the structure itself, while giant pillars rise toward the heavens like frozen waves of stone. Walking through the temple even today feels less like entering a building and more like stepping into another world. Nearby stand the famous Ellora Caves, one of the greatest artistic achievements in human history. Spread across a vast rocky hillside, the caves contain Buddhist, Hindu, and Jain monuments carved over centuries by different dynasties and religious communities. This coexistence of multiple faiths within one monumental complex reveals a remarkable chapter of cultural and spiritual exchange in ancient India. Inside the caves, darkness gives way to breathtaking artistry. Giant statues emerge from stone walls. Ceilings bloom with carved patterns. Sacred halls echo with silence once filled by monks, pilgrims, and prayers. Buddhist caves contain meditation chambers and enormous statues of the Buddha. Hindu caves portray gods, cosmic battles, and divine dances. Jain temples display extraordinary detail emphasizing discipline, balance, and spiritual purity. The scale of craftsmanship is staggering. Ancient artists transformed lifeless rock into flowing robes, delicate jewelry, expressive faces, and scenes filled with movement and emotion. Every surface reveals patience measured not in years but generations. But perhaps the greatest mystery is not simply what they built, it is how they built it. Without modern drills, cranes, or heavy machinery, ancient workers shaped mountains with astonishing mathematical precision. Scholars continue debating the methods used for planning and excavation. The temples appear aligned with sacred geometry and cosmic symbolism, suggesting deep knowledge of astronomy, proportion, and spiritual architecture. Many ancient Indian structures were designed not only as physical spaces but as symbolic reflections of the universe itself. Geometry carried sacred meaning. Temple layouts mirrored cosmic order. Towers represented mountains connecting earth and heaven. Passageways symbolized spiritual journeys from ignorance toward enlightenment. This blending of science, spirituality, mathematics, and art became one of the defining features of ancient Indian civilization. The builders themselves remain largely anonymous. No detailed records survive describing every engineer, sculptor, architect, or craftsman who dedicated their lives to these monuments. Yet their work speaks across centuries with astonishing power. Chisel marks still remain upon the stone. Every carved figure carries the touch of forgotten hands. Over time, invasions, wars, natural decay, and political change damaged many ancient temples across India. Some were abandoned. Others were hidden beneath forests and dust. Yet the surviving monuments continue to stand as reminders of a civilization capable of extraordinary imagination and discipline. Today, millions of visitors walk through Ellora and Kailasa in wonder, asking the same question scholars continue asking. How did ancient builders achieve such perfection? What knowledge has been lost across time? And what does their work reveal about the forgotten heights of human civilization? The temples carved from mountains remain more than archaeological sites. They are echoes of a world where devotion inspired impossible achievements, where stone itself became sacred memory. Even after more than 1,000 years, the mountains of India still carry the fingerprints of ancient genius. For thousands of years, ancient India stood not only as a land of kingdoms and temples, but as one of humanity's greatest centers of knowledge. Long before many parts of the world developed formal systems of science and education, scholars across the Indian subcontinent explored mathematics, medicine, astronomy, philosophy, metallurgy, and spiritual understanding with remarkable depth. Their discoveries shaped civilizations across Asia and beyond. Yet much of this ancient wisdom would eventually be forgotten, destroyed, or scattered across history. Among the earliest and most influential systems to emerge from ancient India was Ayurveda, a sophisticated tradition of medicine focused on balance between body, mind, and nature. Ancient physicians believed health depended upon harmony within the human body and the natural world. Herbs, diet, surgery, meditation, and holistic healing formed the foundation of treatment. Texts such as the Charaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita described illnesses, anatomy, surgical procedures, and medicinal plants with astonishing detail. The surgeon Sushruta, often regarded as one of the earliest surgeons in human history, described procedures including cataract surgery, bone treatment, wound care, and forms of reconstructive surgery centuries before similar methods became common elsewhere. Ancient Indian healers developed surgical tools, sterilization concepts, and medical practices that reflected deep observation of the human body. But medicine was only one branch of ancient India's intellectual achievements. In mathematics, Indian scholars transformed humanity's understanding of numbers themselves. One of the most revolutionary concepts ever created emerged from ancient India: the number zero. Today, zero appears simple and ordinary. Yet without it, modern mathematics, science, engineering, computers, and economics would be almost impossible. Ancient Indian mathematicians developed the decimal place value system that became the foundation of modern arithmetic. These ideas later traveled through the Islamic world into Europe, permanently changing global mathematics. Brilliant scholars such as Aryabhata and Brahmagupta explored algebra, geometry, trigonometry, and astronomical calculations with extraordinary sophistication. Aryabhata proposed that the Earth rotates on its axis long before such ideas became widely accepted elsewhere. Indian mathematicians calculated planetary movements, eclipses, and time cycles with remarkable accuracy. Above ancient observatories, scholars carefully tracked the stars and planets night after night. Astronomy held both scientific and spiritual significance. Celestial movements shaped calendars, rituals, navigation, and agricultural cycles. Massive systems of timekeeping emerged through generations of observation. Ancient Indian texts described lunar cycles, solar years, and planetary alignments with precision that still impresses historians of science today. Meanwhile, another remarkable field flourished: metallurgy. Across India, ancient craftsmen mastered techniques for working with iron, steel, copper, zinc, and precious metals. One of the most famous surviving examples is the Iron Pillar of Delhi. Standing for more than 1,600 years, the pillar has resisted significant rust and corrosion despite exposure to the elements. Modern scientists continue studying the pillar to understand the advanced metallurgical processes used in its creation. Ancient Indian steel, particularly wood steel, became famous across the ancient world for its strength and quality. Some historians believe it contributed to the legendary Damascus steel later admired in the Middle East. These achievements reveal a civilization deeply invested in scientific experimentation, craftsmanship, and intellectual exploration. At the center of this knowledge system stood great universities that attracted students from across Asia. Among them, Nalanda University became one of the greatest educational centers of the ancient world. Located in present-day Bihar, Nalanda flourished for centuries as a massive residential university where thousands of students studied subjects ranging from philosophy and medicine to astronomy, mathematics, literature, and logic. Scholars traveled from China, Korea, Tibet, Persia, and Southeast Asia to learn within its vast libraries and lecture halls. Ancient descriptions portray enormous libraries containing hundreds of thousands of manuscripts preserved across multiple buildings. Monks and scholars debated ideas beneath towering temples and courtyards alive with intellectual energy. Nalanda symbolized the global influence of ancient Indian knowledge. But like many great centers of learning throughout history, it would eventually face destruction. During invasions and periods of political upheaval, libraries across India were burned, damaged, or abandoned. Priceless manuscripts vanished in flames. Generations of accumulated knowledge disappeared forever. Some historical accounts claim that fires at Nalanda burned for months because of the enormous number of books stored within its libraries. How much wisdom was lost can never truly be measured. Entire scientific discoveries, philosophical works, historical records, and literary traditions may have vanished permanently. Yet despite centuries of destruction, fragments survived. Indian mathematics continued influencing global science. Ayurveda endured through tradition and practice. Astronomical systems shaped calendars across Asia. Sacred texts preserved philosophical teachings thousands of years old. And scattered ruins still whisper the memory of a civilization devoted not only to power and conquest, but to learning itself. The lost knowledge of ancient India reminds humanity that civilizations are remembered not only through wars and monuments, but through ideas. Ideas that cross borders. Ideas that survive empires. Ideas capable of shaping the future long after kingdoms disappear. Some knowledge was lost forever in fire and invasion. Some remains buried beneath forgotten ruins. And some still lives quietly within the foundations of the modern world, hidden in numbers, medicine, science, and philosophy that trace their origins back to the ancient minds of India. Across the long history of ancient India, mighty empires rose with unimaginable power, wealth, and influence. Their kings commanded vast armies. Their cities overflowed with trade and culture. Their monuments touched the heavens. For centuries, these empires shaped the destiny of the Indian subcontinent and influenced lands far beyond its borders. Yet no empire lasts forever. Time, war, ambition, invasion, and nature eventually consume even the greatest civilizations. Today, many of these once powerful kingdoms survive only through scattered ruins, forgotten texts, broken statues, and fading memory. Among the first truly massive empires of ancient India was the Maurya Empire, founded by Chandragupta Maurya in the 4th century BCE. From humble beginnings, Chandragupta built a kingdom so vast that it stretched across enormous regions of the Indian subcontinent. Guided by strategy, discipline, and political brilliance, the Mauryan rulers transformed India into one of the world's greatest powers. But it was under Emperor Ashoka that the empire reached its peak. Ashoka began as a fierce conqueror. His armies crushed rival kingdoms in brutal campaigns, expanding Mauryan dominance across the land. Yet one war changed him forever, the devastating Kalinga War. Historical accounts describe rivers filled with blood, burning cities, and countless deaths. Witnessing the suffering caused by his own ambition shattered Ashoka's spirit. Overcome by remorse, he abandoned violent conquest and embraced Buddhism, dedicating his rule to peace, morality, and compassion. Under Ashoka, roads, monuments, hospitals, and centers of learning spread across the empire. Stone pillars carrying moral teachings were erected throughout the land. Buddhism expanded beyond India into Sri Lanka, Central Asia, and eventually East Asia. For a time, the Mauryan Empire became a symbol not only of political power but of ethical rule. Yet after Ashoka's death, the empire weakened. Internal struggles, political instability, and regional fragmentation slowly shattered Mauryan unity. Provinces broke away. Trade declined. The once mighty empire gradually dissolved into history. Centuries later, another golden age emerged, the Gupta Empire. Often described as the golden age of ancient India, The Gupta period witnessed extraordinary achievements in science, mathematics, astronomy, literature, philosophy, and art. Cities flourished with prosperity. Scholars produced groundbreaking discoveries. Magnificent temples and sculptures appeared across the land. This was the age of Aryabhata, whose mathematical and astronomical ideas transformed scientific understanding. Sanskrit literature reached remarkable heights. Hindu philosophy and art flourished with renewed energy. Under Gupta rule, India became one of the intellectual and cultural centers of the ancient world. But like every empire before it, the Gupta Empire faced growing threats. Foreign invasions weakened borders. Economic pressures increased. Regional kingdoms challenged central authority. Over time, the empire fragmented, and its golden age faded into memory. Yet the story of ancient India was far from over. In southern India, the Chola Empire rose as one of the greatest maritime powers in Asian history. The Cholas built enormous naval fleets that carried Indian influence across Southeast Asia through trade, culture, and military expeditions. Their temples displayed breathtaking architecture and artistic sophistication. Cities such as Tanjavur became centers of wealth, spirituality, and political authority. Massive stone temples rose above the landscape like mountains crafted by human hands. Meanwhile, centuries later, the Vijayanagara Empire emerged in southern India as another powerful kingdom resisting invasion and preserving regional traditions. Its capital city astonished foreign travelers with massive markets, temples, fortifications, and royal courts filled with riches. But war once again brought destruction. In 1565, after the Battle of Talikota, Vijayanagara suffered catastrophic defeat. The magnificent capital was invaded, looted, and devastated. One of India's greatest cities fell into ruin almost overnight. This pattern repeated throughout history. Kingdoms rose through ambition and strength. They flourished through trade, culture, and innovation. Then they declined through conflict, political division, invasion, environmental change, or economic collapse. Across India, ancient temples were damaged or abandoned. Libraries vanished. Palaces crumbled beneath forests and sand. Entire capitals disappeared into silence. Yet even in ruin, traces of their greatness survived. Broken statues still stand among jungle vines. Ancient fortresses overlook empty plains. Temple bells still echo in forgotten cities. And beneath modern towns and villages lie buried remnants of worlds once believed eternal. The fall of these empires reveals one of history's most powerful truths. Civilization is fragile. No kingdom, no matter how wealthy or powerful, escapes time forever. The rulers of ancient India once believed their cities would endure for eternity. Their monuments were built to defy death itself. Yet today, many survive only as ruins visited by historians, pilgrims, and travelers searching for echoes of the past. Still, their legacy continues. Indian philosophy shaped global spirituality. Mathematics transformed science. Art and architecture inspired generations. Languages, literature, and traditions survived the collapse of kingdoms. Though the empires themselves disappeared, their influence never fully died. Perhaps that is the true measure of civilization. Not how long its walls survive, but how deeply its ideas continue living within humanity long after the empire itself has turned to dust. Throughout human history, mythology has often been dismissed as imagination, stories created to entertain, inspire, or explain the unknown. But across ancient civilizations, myths sometimes preserve fragments of forgotten truth. Beneath legends of gods, floods, lost kingdoms, and cosmic wars may lie echoes of real events experienced by people thousands of years ago. In India, this possibility has fascinated historians, archaeologists, and spiritual thinkers for generations. Ancient epics such as the Mahabharata and the Ramayana describe enormous cities, advanced kingdoms, celestial weapons, devastating wars, and catastrophic destruction. For centuries, many believed these stories existed purely within mythology. Yet discoveries connected to places like Dwaraka, ancient river systems, and forgotten settlements continue raising difficult questions. Could some myths preserve memories of real civilizations long lost to time? The idea is not unique to India. Across the world, ancient cultures tell stories of great floods, vanished kingdoms, and destroyed worlds. Greek mythology speaks of Atlantis. Mesopotamian texts describe catastrophic floods. Indigenous traditions from many regions preserve stories of environmental disasters and migrations. Modern science now confirms that dramatic climate changes shaped human history repeatedly. At the end of the last ice age, rising sea levels submerged coastlines across the world. Entire settlements may have disappeared beneath oceans and rivers. Earthquakes, droughts, volcanic eruptions, and floods destroyed countless ancient communities long before written history fully developed. When survivors passed these events to future generations, memory often blended with symbolism, spirituality, and legend. Over centuries, history transformed into mythology. This possibility gives ancient Indian stories extraordinary significance. The drying of the Saraswati River described in Vedic literature may reflect real environmental change. Flood legends surrounding Dwaraka could preserve cultural memory of submerged coastal settlements. Ancient descriptions of kingdoms and migrations may contain echoes of forgotten historical transitions. Yet separating myth from history remains deeply challenging. Archaeology depends upon physical evidence: ruins, tools, inscriptions, bones, and artifacts. Mythology speaks through symbolism, poetry, and spiritual meaning. Sometimes the two intersect. Sometimes they diverge completely. This tension creates ongoing debate. Some researchers argue that mythology should not be treated as literal history. Others believe ancient oral traditions may preserve valuable clues overlooked by conventional approaches. Oral storytelling played an enormous role in preserving Indian civilization for thousands of years. Long before widespread written texts, knowledge passed through memory, recitation, and sacred performance. Epics were memorized line by line across generations with astonishing accuracy. In this way, stories became vessels carrying fragments of cultural identity through centuries of change. Even when cities collapsed and libraries burned, memory survived through human voices. This preservation of oral tradition may explain why ancient Indian mythology feels unusually layered and complex. It contains philosophy, spirituality, cosmology, morality, genealogy, and perhaps traces of historical memory intertwined together. Modern technology is now reopening many ancient mysteries once thought impossible to investigate. Satellite imagery has revealed hidden river channels beneath deserts. Ground-penetrating radar uncovers buried structures. Marine archaeology explores submerged coastlines beneath the ocean. DNA studies trace ancient migrations and population changes. Each new discovery reshapes humanity's understanding of the past. Yet with every answer comes even greater mystery. How many ancient cities remain buried beneath forests, rivers, and deserts? How much knowledge disappeared before history was fully recorded? Could entire civilizations still wait undiscovered beneath the earth? India's vast landscape contains countless archaeological sites that remain unexplored. Jungles conceal forgotten temples. Desert sands hide ruined settlements. Remote mountains preserve ancient monasteries and caves untouched for centuries. The deeper researchers explore, the more they realize how incomplete humanity's understanding of the ancient world truly is. This mystery continues to fascinate people because it touches something universal within human nature. We are drawn to lost civilizations because they remind us of our own fragility. No matter how powerful a society becomes, time eventually erodes its monuments. Rivers shift. Empires collapse. Knowledge disappears. Nature reclaims cities once believed eternal. But myths endure. Stories survive where stone cannot. Legends carry emotional truth across generations even when historical details fade away. Perhaps that is why ancient India's hidden history remains so captivating. It exists between reality and imagination, between archaeology and spirituality, between evidence and memory. And within that space lies one of humanity's oldest questions. How much of our past has truly been forgotten? Perhaps the greatest discoveries of ancient India have not yet been made. Perhaps beneath the deserts of Rajasthan, beneath the waters of Gujarat, or beneath the crowded streets of modern cities, entire worlds still sleep beneath layers of time. Waiting, silent, hidden, until one day history uncovers them once again. Across deserts, forests, mountains, and oceans, the forgotten civilizations of ancient India continue to whisper through the ruins they left behind. Broken temples stand beneath fading sunlight. Silent cities sleep beneath layers of earth. Ancient rivers that once gave life to mighty kingdoms have vanished into dust. Yet even after thousands of years, their presence still lingers within history, mythology, and memory. From the carefully planned streets of the Indus Valley Civilization to the mysterious underwater legends of Dwaraka, from the breathtaking rock-cut temples of Ellora to the lost libraries of Nalanda, ancient India reveals a world of extraordinary achievement. These civilizations mastered architecture, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, metallurgy, philosophy, and spiritual thought long before much of the ancient world reached similar heights. And yet, despite their greatness, many of these worlds disappeared. Climate change altered rivers and landscapes. Wars shattered kingdoms. Invasions destroyed cities and libraries. Time buried entire civilizations beneath sand, forests, and sea. The rise and fall of these empires reminds humanity of a truth repeated throughout history. No civilization is permanent. Even the mightiest kingdoms eventually fade. But while monuments crumble, ideas survive. The ancient thinkers of India transformed human understanding of mathematics through the concept of zero and the decimal system. Their astronomers mapped the heavens. Their physicians explored healing through Ayurveda and early surgery. Their philosophers asked timeless questions about consciousness, morality, existence, and the universe itself. These ideas crossed borders and centuries, influencing cultures far beyond the Indian subcontinent. In many ways, the true legacy of ancient India was never limited to its palaces or temples. Its greatest legacy was knowledge. And perhaps even more importantly, memory. Because history is not preserved only in stone. It survives through stories, through songs, through epics passed from generation to generation. The Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and countless ancient traditions carried fragments of civilization across thousands of years, preserving cultural identity even when kingdoms collapsed. Some myths may contain echoes of forgotten historical events. Some ruins may still remain undiscovered. And some knowledge may have vanished forever in fire, conquest, and time. Yet the search continues. Every excavation uncovers new mysteries. Every ancient inscription raises new questions. Every hidden structure beneath ocean or desert reminds us how little humanity truly knows about its own past. Perhaps entire cities still sleep beneath the earth waiting to be found. Perhaps forgotten manuscripts once containing lost scientific discoveries remain hidden in caves or ruins. Or perhaps some secrets of the ancient world are destined to remain forever beyond human reach. That mystery is part of what makes lost civilizations so powerful. They remind us that humanity's story is far older, deeper, and more fragile than we often imagine. The people who built these ancient worlds once believed their cities would endure forever. Now only fragments remain. But through those fragments their voices still speak. And as long as humanity continues searching for truth, meaning, and understanding, the echoes of ancient India's forgotten civilizations will never truly disappear. Beneath the dust of time, the lost world of ancient India still waits to be remembered.